Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this weekend I am making sourdough bagels and I need to feed my starter. For that, I have not fed it since yesterday. So I wanted to walk you through kind of what I do to get ready to like prep for sourdough bagels. It's not hard, it's relatively easy. But it does take a little bit of thought about when you're going to be baking them or making them. So I'm gonna feed the starter because it needs time to ferment and feed and all of that good stuff. Okay, so to feed your starter, if you've never done it before, it's super simple. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna probably discard about half of this. Some people use discard to make, like, you can make, I think, crackers, which I've never done. I'd like to do at one point. You can make, like, I make sourdough pizza crust with it. It's really good. So there's different things you can do with the discard. Some people don't discard at all. Honestly, it's preference. I'm just gonna discard because I need to, I don't wanna overflow it. I've done that before where I've overfed it and it just goes everywhere. So I'm trying not to do that. Discarded about half. Again, it's not very scientific. I just kind of eyeball it. Even when I first started doing sourdough, I probably was a little bit more meticulous with like measurements, and then as I've gotten more comfortable with it and gotten into it a little bit more, I'm like, I don't do that. Okay, so side note, I personally like using wide mouth mason jars to store my starter in. It does make it easier to feed it because my cup fits and flour doesn't go everywhere. So quick tip. But I'm just gonna feed it about a half a cup, and then I'll do a half a cup of water. So that's it. It's just a 1-to-1 ratio for sourdough starter. Or I think some people do 60 grams. They do it by grams instead of like cups and stuff. It's whatever you prefer. I just think it's easier because then I don't have to get my kitchen scale out. And then you stir it so with sourdough, you want it to be like a thick pancake batter consistency. One of the things I learned at the beginning of making sourdough is I made it too dry. I didn't have enough liquid in it because it was a little bit more on the pudgy side. I don't know the right word for it. It was drier. So this is just really thick, like thick pancake batter. That is the best way to describe it. Okay, and then that's all you have to do. And then I'm just gonna put the top back on and let it sit, and then I can make some dough. Hey guys, so the starter has set. So now I'm ready to make the bagel dough, which is very simple, and it's very similar to sourdough bread, except you switch out olive oil for sugar. So what I'm gonna be doing, like the amount wise, I'm gonna be adding 250 grams of water, 150 grams of starter, 24 grams of sugar, and 9 grams of salt. And then I'll add 500 grams of flour. So it's pretty similar to bread, but really the biggest difference is the olive oil. I'm not using olive oil in this one. Okay, so the dough is all mixed together. I'm going to do the same like paper towel trick that I did with the bread and put this over to give it some moisture, and then I'm going to cover it and let it sit on the counter. And I will probably either make bagels tonight, and if I don't do it tonight, I will put them in the fridge and make them tomorrow morning. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I will take you through that whole situation and setup next. So it's actually been a couple days since I filmed the last part of this video getting the dough ready. I actually ended up using that dough for, I went over to my mom's and my niece, I made bagels for them. I don't know why that was such a hard thing to get out. I made bagels, yeah. My mom really likes my bagels, so I took all the stuff over there and made it for her. So I had to start over. So I made this dough last night, and now I'm going to make it. While I was making it, I thought I would show you how to do that process. It's not hard. It's a little different than bread. Bread I feel like is pretty straightforward. But for bagels, what I'm doing, now that my dough has doubled its size, I am just kind of getting it flattened out into a rectangle. So just stretching it out, which it might take a minute or so to get it all stretched out because sometimes it likes to shrink. So I just play with that. And I really try when I'm doing the dough, I really try to make sure I'm working from the center out. I want the bagels to be as even as possible. That doesn't always happen. So that way I'm not getting two really big bagels and several small ones. So the one batch of bagel dough usually makes around 8 or 9 bagels depending on how big you make them. I've also gotten 15 mini bagels. So it honestly depends on how big you're making them. But if you're doing just your normal average size bagels, it's about 8 is a good. Sometimes I do 6 if I'm doing them bigger. So I would give you on recipes how they give you measurements. I don't do that. I kind of eyeball it because I'm not gonna sit there and fret about it. They're bagels, you're gonna eat them. I don't really care if they look the most beautiful. Everyone who's ever had my bagels, they don't really say anything about it being, maybe that's why they don't say anything, because they're not pretty, but they taste good, and that's what's important, right? Sometimes it's more about the taste than the presentation. But I am working on it. But I will never use measurements. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, is this half an inch ball or whatever? No, I'm not gonna do that. That's too much work. All right, so I think I got it about. Also, I had some on there, but it kind of got all mixed in with the dough. If you flour some flour on your board, this is just a cutting board. Here. If you flour some flour on there, it'll help the dough from sticking. So I'm just gonna use a serrated knife, and I'm gonna separate them. I usually do 2 cuts vertical and then 2 or 3 cuts horizontal, but this one I think I'm gonna do 3 cuts this way. Oh, these are not even. Okay, and then what you do once you get them cut, you're gonna take them and roll them. So it's like you're playing with Play-Doh again. It's like Play-Doh for adults. A bagel. Yeah, mommy's making bagels. All right, so once you get them rolled into a ball, what I do, sometimes Okay. Some recipes at this stage, once you roll them in the ball, they want you to set them on the tray and let them just rest for like 10-15 minutes. I skip that step just because I'm impatient, and most of the time I just want to get them made.
Are you talking here?
Yeah.
Hi, are you talking here?
For YouTube, bud. Clearly he has not seen me do one of these. So just put your fingers in the middle of the dough and then make a hole so it looks like a bagel. That's it. That's what you're gonna do for all of these. You're gonna be making bagel-like creations. And then I just lined a cookie sheet with some parchment paper. And then once I get it to this step, I do let it set for 5-10 minutes. And then we will boil them. And I know that sounds weird, but it's supposedly supposed to help the baking process. So yes, we're gonna boil them, but you will also need like a tablespoon of honey to put in your water. So we'll do that next. Okay, so now that I've set my fire alarm off and I have the dough ready, we're good to go. I'm not sure why it went off. Nothing is burning. I think it's because my stove is right here, my fridge is right here, and I have like an overhang. And I kind of just shoved my fire alarm right there, so whenever I have anything steaming on the stove, it likes to go off, you know, keep me on my toes. Yes, I know I should hang it up. I just haven't got to it. All right, bagels. So, the water is almost boiling, but I put in like a tablespoon, half a tablespoon to a tablespoon of honey. There's like a whole, I don't want to say scientific reason, but the honey is supposed to like help get like the outside good for baking. If you don't have honey, it's not the end of the world. I've done it before where I forgot to put that honey in there, and they also bake just fine. So I don't know if I've really ever noticed a difference using honey versus not. The recipe I used originally always used honey, so it's kind of habit now. Minus when I've forgotten to do it. Alright, so what you're gonna do is once it's boiling, I need to get my fork. This is like a plus size fork. I just like using it. Okay, so what you do once your water is boiling, you're gonna take your bagel and just drop it in. So it's gonna sink to the bottom and it should start floating in like 10 seconds. If it doesn't, I just nudge it with my fork. So that way it doesn't get stuck to the bottom. And then you boil it like 30-ish seconds on each side. Again, I'm not real scientific about it or real, I'm just like, oh, that seems good. And then go from there. So nothing super fancy. I just wouldn't worry about being overly militant about it. And then you're just repeating the process over and over until your bagels are done. Now, after you boil your bagels, whatever the word is, after you're done boiling your bagels, you want to let them cool for like, I don't know, 20 seconds, and then you can season them, or leave them plain if you want plain bagels. I season mine with everything bagel, which highly recommend doing because it's delicious. It is not store-bought everything bagels. When you buy store-bought everything bagels, they are disgusting. I've tried them, not a fan. But these homemade, super good. But that is when you want to season them. You can also do like cinnamon sugar is good. I've done that before, but I usually, for the most part, my go-tos are plain because that's what my son likes, and everything because that is my favorite. But I am, if I do run out of like everything bagels, I will put like cream cheese on a plain one and sprinkle some everything on it. It's not as good as it being like completely coated, but it's not bad. Hi, Ode. That's Odie. Say hi, Odie. Say hi, Odie. So yeah, that is essentially it for bagel making. Oven. I preset my oven. I just preset it for 450 right now because I'm also making bread. But I usually do it around 400, 415 to cook bagels. Slide them in for about 20 minutes on one side, then you flip them over and bake them on the other side for like another 5 minutes. So it doesn't take super long. And then let them cool for a minute and eat them. I highly recommend eating them fresh. Fresh bagels are chef's kiss. So good. So good. So I completely forgot to film me taking these out of the oven because both of my boys decided to get up. So that was fun. But yeah, like, oh, these were so good. Look at those camera angles. Aren't those just the best? But yeah, literally the best. Put some cream cheese on it. Delicious.